Hello, everyone. Welcome to be my guest. And today I'm very happy and honored to welcome Tata Motors Vice President for Global Design, Pratap Bose, the very inspirational automotive designer. Hello, Pratap. Nice to have you
Hello,
here.
hello,
Hello.
Stephanie. Bonjour to all your viewers, of course, in France, and
Hello,
hello,
everyone.
good afternoon, good evening to everyone watching from UK, from India. Thank you for having me. I'm really honored to be here as well.
Well, hello everyone on Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, and Twitter. You can ask questions and we'll be very happy to answer them. Bonjour à tous. That will be in English today for my French followers. So, Pratap, first we're going to talk about the man, the designer. And let's start with your childhood. Have you always enjoyed drawing and cars as well?
Yeah, Stephanie, you've spoken to many car designers before. And you'll see in most cases, car designers really love cars first. And it's always an obsession. And of course, growing up in India in the 70s and 80s, we saw very few, let's say, overseas cars. We had only two or three cars in India. One was like a Morris Oxford, and the other one was a Fiat 1100. That was pretty much the only cars we saw for a long time. So, and of course, this is all pre-internet.
So,
So
what
you have
was
to really,
yes?
so you
So,
have to really dig deep to find, inspiration and cars. But yes, I loved cars from ever since I can remember. I drew a lot of them in my biology book. I got thrown out of the class. And I'm really happy that one day I could choose my interest and passion to be my profession. I think that's very important that you whatever profession you choose, it really is your passion as well.
yeah, this is very important. You're right. So we understand you didn't have that many European cars or American cars in India when you grew up, but I guess you had probably posters on the walls growing up as a teenager. I'm talking about automotive posters, of course. What was your absolute favorite car, which was not a Tata car?
Yeah, of course. I mean, growing up, Tata, when I was growing up, Tata actually didn't even make any cars. We started making cars only in 98, actually. Tata has always been a truck manufacturer. So Tata didn't make any cars when I was growing up. So yeah, like you said, like any other boy in the world, we had beautiful things on the wall. Some of them were cars. and
I'm not asking about the other ones, but
and like everyone else, cars from Gandini, actually, the Countach. There were, of course, in my time, the Ferrari, the 208 GTB, the Maseratis, the Ghibli, the Marzal, the Lancia Zero, Stratos. So these were some of the cars on my wall. And it's funny you ask, because today, Stephanie, the wall has actually become the wallpaper on this device. And my aim, in fact, when I came to Tata Motors, my aim was that since no one puts things on the wall anymore, I want our cars to be on the wallpaper. And and that started to happen, and I'm really happy to see that.
so you started your designer career with motorbikes, actually, with Piaggio,
Yeah.
and we have some pictures I can
Yeah.
show and that you can
These are
comment.
all from kind of 1998, late 98, 99, 2000. That was the period I was working in Piaggio in Italy, in Toscana, as everyone knows, near Pisa. Piaggio is in a place called Pontedera. It has always been there, and it was a fantastic learning experience. As anyone knows, Stephanie, when you go to a new culture, a new place, a new language. Pontedera was a small town of 20,000 people, so not too many people spoke English. But it was a very, very interesting experience to actually work in Piaggio, and I really love it. It's still a very important part of my life, and to be able to do scooters, to be able to do motorcycles, uh, was extremely interesting. I learned a lot there actually from my colleagues, from the modelers. You know, Stephanie, in Italy, actually, there's a tradition of using hard models. That means they would use either plaster of Paris, or they would use, a very hard foam, styrene foam. And the modelers, I remember, the only way to communicate with the modelers, and this is something very important for designers, we have the language of drawing. So you don't need a language, which is spoken. And through the drawings, like you just showed, I would communicate to the modelers, and the way they would move their hands to create the surfaces, is what I really learned. That any surface, and this is true about Italian design, I think any surface is always very, very beautiful, not only to look at, but also to touch and to feel. And this is because they use, this traditional modeling technique to create those beautiful shapes. So I really learned a lot about shape, about beauty, about form in my 3 years in Piaggio.
So talking about beautiful shapes, then you moved to Daimler Japan, and I'm going to show a couple of pictures. And yes, you, of course, you have 300 SL, my favorite car.
Yeah.
Lucky you.
No, so Stephanie, in my bachelor's of design in India, we didn't have actually transportation design as a specialization in the 90s. So I studied product design, and it was through product design that I got into Piaggio. But I really wanted to sort of study car design. It was very, very important for me, because I ultimately wanted to end up in a car design studio. And I knew that had I not studied a little more, it would have been very difficult to get into a global OEM studio. So from Piaggio, I sort of left my job and moved to London to RCA, and I did a 2 years master's in automotive design. And following that, I actually got a job in Japan, in Mitsubishi. That time, Mitsubishi was with Daimler Chrysler. So I worked there for a year, but then Daimler Chrysler and Mitsubishi split. And Olivier Boulet, who was the head of Mitsubishi Design at that point, went back to Mercedes-Benz. And, he asked me to also join in Yokohama. They had a studio in Yokohama. So I went there. And those pictures that you showed are actually from the Yokohama studio.
Okay. So there was a big change for Tata Motors in 1998. So it was not the change, it was the start of it all. And this is the Indica, and we can see front Ratan Tata, I think, the CEO.
Yeah.
So can you tell me about that car?
So, as I said, Stephanie, the history of Tata Motors is actually building locomotives pre-independence, and then post-independence, actually, we started building trucks under license from Mercedes-Benz. And, we built trucks for a long time. We still build trucks now. We are, in fact, the market leader in India for heavy, for commercial vehicles. But Mr. Tata is a man who's absolutely passionate about cars. And in 92, 93, he actually said, I'm going to build a small car for India, called it Indica. We, of course, did not have the design capability in India at that time. So he went around the world and he found IDEA Institute, which was run by Roberto Mantegazza. He found IDEA Institute in Torino, and IDEA Institute helped design this car, but not only the car, also the production line and the suppliers and everything, because we had to start from scratch. So you can imagine the kind of vision and how can I say, the courage that someone like Mr. Tata had to build, design, engineer, and build that car. And that's what stood out for me when I saw the picture of the car the first time. And of course, we didn't have internet, so we saw it, in a magazine or in a newspaper. And it really blew my mind. And I said that, the kind of guts this company has, and one day I would like to work for this company. And as you spoke about the journey, I went to Piaggio, I went to Japan, etc. So it was after many years, and in fact 20 years after the Indica came out, that I got a chance to join Tata Motors. It was very, very funny. It
So
was also
that Indica was a turning point for you, as actually.
not only for me, for car making in the country. Actually, it was the first real modern small car, which came out of India and came out of Tata Motors.
So since then, since 1998, you've had at Tata Motors, you've had a lot of cars, and this year has been very productive for you. So you have released a couple of cars, or shown a couple of cars at the Daily Show in last January. Unfortunately, not in Geneva because it was cancelled, but.
Yeah.
But you showed that one, so the HBX.
Yeah. So, Stephanie, I just wanted to add that in the meanwhile, we also built 3 global design studios. As you know, one of them is in our main studio is in India. The second one is in UK, in Coventry, very close to our Jaguar Land Rover cousins. And the third one is in Turin, in Italy. And we use these 3 global studios to really create these products that you're showing. And HBX, for example, is actually a pre-production design of a product we are going to launch. It's a very, very compact car. It's 3.8 meters. You can imagine 3.8 meters is very small by global standards, but it still has comfortable space for 5 people. It's on our new global flexible architecture. It is NCAP, 5-star. At least we hope. We haven't crashed the car yet or got it certified. But we design, for safety, for comfort, for inner space. It's very, very particular to design products for India. And, because we have a global team, I always see that the best results come from our global collaboration. When someone from America or an American designer, I ask him to design a 3.8 meter car, it's almost something he can't imagine. But when you put that sort of creative pressure on your designers, they come up with the best results. So HBX is actually an outcome of this sort of global design effort.
So you're talking about the 3.8 pressure. Why? What is it with the 4 meters? In India, there is something specific to India, I think.
Yes. Most of the Indian car market is actually a small car market. 60 to 65% of the cars are actually small cars, and they are under the length of 4 meters. Beyond 4 meters, in fact, at 4 meters, you have a tax, an additional tax on the car, because India wants to promote smaller cars, actually. So we do lots of interesting cars which are below 4 meters of length. So we do sedans, we do SUVs, of course, hatchbacks. And I speak to, so even a car like this, for example, which is called the Altroz, this is, of course, in the EV version. Even this is actually smaller than 4 meters. If you look at a B segment hatchback in Europe, they are usually longer than 4 meters. So if you look at a Fiesta, you look at a Polo, any of those cars. So when I speak to a lot of my global design contemporaries, they find it very hard to design a car in 4 meters, actually, which also carries 5 people, carries luggage. So, when we talk about Indian design and, products from India, it's very important that the architecture for the design is, caters to the Indian requirements. And like I said, there's almost no hatchbacks globally in the B segment which are under 4 meters, but which still have 220 liters of capacity of luggage, 5 comfortable seats. This is another one. This is another electric vehicle we have just launched in February. It's called the Nexon EV. This has 400 liters of boot space. You can put a full washing machine with its box into the boot of this car.
Wow.
There are some really important particular requirements that we cater for in India, being an Indian company. And people find this very interesting. You mentioned Geneva. When we show these cars in Geneva, the kind of feedback we get, from global audiences, and of course journalists like you who work from Europe, is always very surprising. That they are incredibly surprised and impressed to see how in such a small car we have so much headroom, so much shoulder room, 5 adults, uh, loading capacity. Because I think it's very important to understand that the Indian customer really wants everything. He may have a limited capacity in terms of the wallet, but the desire and the ambition and the aspiration is to buy the best. And any global company who underestimates this desire actually risks not doing well in India. So it's a particular market, and I really I love designing products for India because it's so challenging and exciting.
So you have a lot of cars under 4 meters, but you do have one large car as well, and it's a 5 and 7 seater.
That's right. That's right. Stephanie, this is the other car we showed in the Delhi show in February. This is actually 4.3 meters long. So again, not very long. So the magic is in the packaging. And this car is actually, a modern reinterpretation of a really historic brand name we have in India called the Sierra, which we sold, in the 90s, and it was a real cult car in the 90s in India. When it came on the market, it was unbelievable. So, but for 20 years, it kind of disappeared from the market, but it didn't disappear from people's hearts and minds. And we brought this back as a part of a kind of Legend Reborn series. And that's the car you see. In fact, this is the first car we designed completely in the UK, in the new UK studio. This was born electric because it has to be. I think, in the future, you have to think electric. It was born electric. It has a beautiful interior, very digital, sort of minimal digital detox, I would say, where people can sit and really enjoy talking to each other. Yeah, there you see, you can go face to face, and the back seat is almost like a lounge. You can see there's no big screen in front of you. The whole idea was you bring your own device, and the device can give you the kind of any input you want about the car, even speed, etc. But when you didn't need it, the whole car interior, this car actually we designed inside out, if I'm honest. The whole car interior is about calmness, about space, about talking to each other. And it's very funny. We designed this before COVID, and I think after COVID, this kind of car will become even more relevant. Where it's about really connecting with each other and connecting with nature and what's outside, rather than big screens and so much information coming to you. The car will almost become a space where you have a calm sanctuary, rather than this kind of bombardment with information and data and God knows what else on these massive screens. So this was actually our vision of a car which is calming, which is for the future. Yeah.
Is it wood you have on the floor?
Yes, Stephanie.
It looks like a boat, actually, an Italian boat.
Yeah. In fact, the wood is actually recycled, very low cost plywood. But because it's plywood, when you machine it, you really get all the contours, and it looks extremely beautiful. So
it looks like a riva.
Yeah, like a riva, exactly. And wood is such a warm, beautiful material to touch. But we didn't, of course, use expensive wood. We've used actually very low cost plywood from recycled wood, and from waste wood. And but if you treat it in a certain way, I think you can really pull out the beauty of materials like this.
What is your favorite model since you've been designing for Tata Motors?
For me, Stephanie, it would be, of course, the first one we did as a new design team. It's called the Tiago. Yeah, this one. This is actually the spiritual successor of the car 20 years ago, the Indica, which we spoke about. So it was a real privilege to be able to design a small car for India. And this was the first car we did as a kind of new design team with a new design language. Really good quality, high level of craftsmanship. And this car is the best-selling car in its segment, and it's a very, very strong brand for us in India today. We really took the level of perceived quality, of materials, of fabrics, of architecture to another level. In fact, if I, people will be surprised. This car, if I let's say in euro or in pounds, that's probably around 6,000 euro. So you're getting a very, very significant car for that money. And like I said before, even though sometimes the wallet might be limited, the ambition and the desire to own something amazing in India is not limited. In fact, it's limitless. So, the Indian customer is very, very demanding. And the Tiago, for me, again, represents a sort of turning point in our company's fortune, but also in design in Tata.
So when you mentioned the price of such a car in India, 6,000 euros, my French followers are wondering when you're coming to France and Europe.
A lot of people ask us this question, and in fact, even the Nexon EV, which you showed earlier, the green car, which we launched in February, that's a 20,000 euro car with 350 kilometers of range. It's a fully 5-star crash global NCAP compliant. Yeah, this car, so we are able to really give incredible value for the money. Of course, Stephanie, we in India, the penetration of cars is still very low. Just 18 people out of every 1,000 have a car in India, 18 to 20, as compared to Western Europe, which is already at 650, 700 cars per 1,000. So if you look at where the market growth is and where the market growth can be, we really are focusing on the growth in India.
I guess,
yeah.
Yes.
Because for us, India's already before COVID, already 3.5 million units a year. It was becoming the third or fourth largest market globally, with growing at sort of 20%. Before COVID. Of course, post COVID, we'll have to see what happens. There will be a correction, of course, but the potential for us in India today is massive, and we really want to therefore take part in that automotive revolution in India. And I think, of course, cars like electric cars, like we've shown, you showed the Altroz hatchback, the other green car, and this Nexon. They are amazing cars, and why not? Maybe in the future, this one. Maybe in the future we do have some possibility of bringing cars like this to Europe, because I think for us to really be able to compete, our real competitive strength and advantage will lie actually in EVs rather than IC engine cars. That's my personal view. So if we ever came to Europe, I think our entry would be with electric cars, whenever that happens.
Okay. Well, a couple of weeks ago, I welcomed in the same show in Be My Guest, Rolls-Royce, and we talked about bespoke design, which is really the core of the brand. But I think that to a certain extent, you do have bespoke design as well, but bespoke for the Indian people. And I'm explaining because your design, to me, and this is what's really what I really like about it, has a soul. It refers to Indian tradition, and with some architectural hints and some cultural animals as well. I'm going to show a couple of pictures, but this is something very unique that you only find, in my opinion, at Tata Motors. So I'm going to show a couple of, so you have those animals.
Yeah. This is the peacock on the windscreen of the Ultras.
Okay, sorry, I was reading a question, which so this is a peacock here.
Yeah, and this is inside the glove box.
And you have a Reno as well.
Yeah, this is on the HBX actually.
And I was wondering, are they always for? Let's take for instance the Altros. You hide those animals, but do you hide them at the same place for each car?
Yes, more or less. We call these our Easter eggs. This is the tiger in the Nexon. So most of them are, of course, endangered Indian animals and birds. So that's one thing. We use animals which are in trouble. There's a family of elephants in the Tiago. And Stephanie, you know what? We don't actually talk. This is the lion in the headlights of the Harrier. We don't actually talk about these, very much. We wait for people to discover this. Suppose you have a car for, you've had the car for 2 years, and one day you say, okay, I'm going to clean the car. And while you're cleaning the car in the back glass or in the glove compartment, you find this animal. You discover something new about your own car, and it brings a smile to your face. And I think this is very important. Any person has a relationship with his or her objects, and if you can keep that relationship fresh, is when you develop an emotional bond. And to humanize our products, we started putting in these little Easter eggs in the car. Of course, now more and more people know about it, because when someone discovers it, he takes a picture and puts it on social media, and then everyone talks about it. But the original idea was that you discover this one day by mistake, and it makes you smile. That's how simple it is.
I'm sure this must be a big thing with children when their parents receive the car.
Yeah. We actually have what is great about our brand revival, Stephanie, if I can say, is that the younger kids, who are 5, 7, 10 years old, they are already so aware of products and brands. And many of them we see, there's a picture someone sent me of his son with the little model of the Altros.
Oh, this is so cute.
What I love is that the kids are able to now influence the purchase decision of their family, of the parents. And that's really heartening, because kids have no preconceived ideas. They like something, they like it for what it is, and then they want their family to own that product, and they are becoming big influencers in the buying decisions. So I'm really glad our cars appeal to kids as well.
And during confinement, you even offered Indian children color books with Tata Motors models.
Yes, yeah. We of course, during confinement, we realized that lots of kids are going to be at home. Lots of adults who are also kids at heart are going to be at home. And we put out these line drawings, and we had a great response. And I think when we reopen, I want to compile them into one sort of book.
Memory book.
Yeah, just to say. And again, from everything that they could draw and do, the fact that someone has taken a printout or colored in our car shows that there's some emotional bond that's developing. I think every brand must strive for an emotional bond. If you don't have that, your life and time in business becomes very short. So whatever field of business you're in, product or service, an emotional bond is important, especially after difficult times like we are going through, when people want to re-buy again, relive again. They will only choose those brands, products, and services with which they've been able to create a bond. So that's why we did these small things.
So I have questions related to your different models. Someone is asking what you would say about the Tata Nano.
The Nano. The Nano, Stephanie, of course, is a revolutionary model in its time. When it came out, I had just joined the company, 2007. And the Nano actually represented, again, like the Indica 10 years before it, it represented something really incredible in terms of design, engineering, etc. To be able to make a car, for about $2,000 or $1,500, whatever it was at that time, was incredible. And the amount of learning we as a company learned, the ways of working, re-questioning everything. It had one wiper instead of two. It had 3 bolts instead of 4 in the wheels. We re-questioned everything about automotive, and for us, it represents a real milestone in design, engineering, and of course, a vision of someone like Mr. Tata. For one reason or the other, the product really didn't do as well as we wanted to in terms of the commercial performance. But as a car, there are still people who have it, and still people who write to me saying how much they love the Nano. And my own one regret is that I could not be part of the Nano design team, because it happened before I joined the company. But for me, it will go down as a modern classic. In fact, in MoMA in New York, they have it as part of the permanent collection, and I think Nano will be one of those automotive milestones which will be remembered long after it's gone, and for many things other than commercial success. Let's put it that way. That's the great story of the Nano.
This is the Nano. And someone else is asking about the launch of the HBX. When will it be launched?
The launch, we of course, before the COVID situation, we were going to launch it in this financial year. Now, of course, we are all undergoing, this situation where the factories are closed, the dealerships are closed. So we are re-looking at, the launch dates for all our products, as all manufacturers are. And I'm sure we'll have some announcements on this soon. But the effort will be to launch it as soon as we possibly can. To stick as close to the original schedule, which was this financial year. We would love to launch this car.
Okay, so I was mentioning architectural elements that you can find in your design of Tata cars. And I'm going to show a couple of them as well. So this is not on the car, but these are elements you can find in the car as well.
Yes. Yeah.
No, okay. I'm still.
Yeah.
Here you go.
That's right. Yeah. So Stephanie, we have thousands of years of architectural heritage in India, and India is obviously basically a hot country for most of the place and most of the time in the year. And in the 16th and 17th centuries, the architects. Yeah, this is a picture I wanted to show you. This is what is called a jali. It's a trellis. And it's on, of course, a geometric pattern. What it does is it allows light and air to come into the building, but does not allow the heat. And when we were looking for some inspiration, but very subtle inspiration to show where we come from as a brand, I think it's very important to be very subtle about these things. We looked at these architectural motifs from our old, palaces in Rajasthan, and we started to introduce these into our cars. And again, this is not something which is in your, that is typical of a building in Rajasthan. So you can see there's a lot of sunlight which can generate a lot of heat, but those screens or jalis, they actually let in light and air, but they don't let in heat. So we as a design team felt that we should use these small elements which can remind someone of their Indian heritage, or if you are from overseas, if you've ever been to India, it reminds you of those small little elements that you may have seen. You could have been in one of these hotels, you could have been walking and you can see the way the shadow falls on you, or what you can see out through these trellises. We wanted to have this really small but signature element that only we could do as an Indian company.
And this is what is interesting is that you mentioned that you are a global team of designers. And your designers are in India, but not only in India, they are in England and in Italy as well. And in spite of this, you still have that Indian touch in your cars, which make them totally different from other cars in the world.
That's right. Stephanie, it's very important to strike a balance between what is global and what is local. So what is global, for example, we don't have any compromise in terms of packaging, in terms of dimension, in terms of safety, in terms of powertrain, in terms of technology. That is completely global. Our cars are as good as any other car in the world in the same segment, because all manufacturers are also present in India with their latest products. So in terms of technology, in terms of engineering, in terms of safety, we are global. And in fact, in some of our products, we are actually number one as well in India, especially safety. But when it comes to the expression and design, there we can get really local. We can get really specific to where our brand comes from. And you mentioned the design team. We have 13 different nationalities, right from USA to Australia, in our design team. And everyone understands the brand very, very well. We are an Indian brand. We don't want to copy anybody else. We want to be the best where we have to in terms of global, technology, safety, etc. But also we want to stand out for what we are. We are very proud of our, where we come from as a company. So we are a global company with local roots and a local heart. And this balance is very, very important. That's why if you see the way we use the little animal or the way we use this kind of texture, it's very subtle. If someone makes the link to India, then it's good. If someone doesn't make the link, it's still okay. It's still a nice thing to have, a nice thing to see, a nice texture to feel in the car. So we don't shout about some of these design elements that we use, but people like you, our customers, etc., everyone has started to notice that we do this, and they started to recognize that through these design touches we are different to the rest of the manufacturers that are present.
So you are Indian bespoke.
Yep, absolutely.
I have one last question. Were you part of Racimo concept? Are we going to see this in the near future as a production variant?
Yeah, Racemo was a very, very interesting project we did as a company. It was a Skunk Works project. It started as a project we were only going to do for digital, for the games, for gaming. I spoke about younger audience. We said if we have to bring them into the Tata brand, we have to have a Tata car in the gaming world, PlayStation and Xbox and all that.
Like Lamborghini.
Sorry?
Like Lamborghini, for instance.
Yeah, so Racemo started as a project for the virtual world, for the gaming world. But when we actually designed the car, we really liked what we saw, and we said, look, can we try to put something like this in production? What were the processes that we would need? Because we couldn't do it in sheet metal and all of that. So we did some really incredible process engineering, material engineering to develop that car. It's sandwiched, and the pieces are stuck to each other with foam in the middle. It's very strong, very light. But of course, we are a company which has to do business. We have to generate funds and capital and money to keep running. We have to be a sustainable business. So at that point, we have to focus back on our core business, which is the cars you have shown, and we have to put Racemo a little bit on the side track. Maybe someday, the core business will be big enough for us to be able to play with Racemo.
So I have a question on YouTube from a student, Arish Kumar, who would like to know if there is any chance, being a student, that he can join Tata Motors in the near future.
Yeah, of course. I mean, our whole pipeline of talent is actually graduating students. But having said that, Harish, like we said, we're a global team. We have therefore global expectations in terms of your portfolio and your ability and your skill as a designer. So when you graduate, you must ensure that you are amongst the best, not only in India but anywhere in the world. And that means you have to work very, very hard, because the competition is fierce. I mean, this is a sketch.
Sketches, yes, I'm showing sketches indeed.
You can see this is the level of our designers. So in terms of, if you want to reach this sort of professional level, you have to work extremely hard and get to this level. Yeah, why not? I mean, why only our studio? Harish, I'm assuming you're speaking to us from India. You should have an ambition to work in any studio globally. So set your aim really high, but you must work hard to get to that point. If you're not in the top 1% of designers who are graduating, unfortunately, you will not get a job. It's as simple as that.
Sharat is asking, how are the automotive R&D industry going to be in terms of hiring new graduates in this fiscal year?
Yeah, this year is going to be tough. I can tell you this globally. It's not only us or in India, or the whole world has got hit by this virus and this situation, as you know, and we are already into May. So by the time we reopen and normalize, this year would have probably already gone. So I think the hiring capacity and ability of most companies will be very, very limited, and you should watch out for that. So if you can study further, if you're in the bachelor's, for example, and I would say please look at a master's degree maybe to improve yourself, etc. Because I think the job situation this coming year will be very hard. Not only design, I'm talking about in general.
Of course. And we have another question on Facebook from Amit. He would like to know if we could have a car design competition for non-professionals, because I think you organized design competitions for design students, and he would like to know if it would be open to non-professionals as well.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very good idea. When you say non-professionals, you are still a potential customer and a consumer. And I always say that you don't have to be a designer to have some ideas about design. You may not be able to be a professional designer, but I think anyone can think and conceive and imagine the future. So I think that's a very good idea, Amit. I think let me think about that with the team, and if we can, I would love to do something for non-designers or non-professionals, because sometimes when non-professionals look at something, they have a fresh approach, and maybe we get something exciting and new.
I'm showing one last picture because it just make Europeans dream. So.
Yeah, and Stephanie, this is a very good example of what you have spoken about. Tradition and modernity.
I know.
So if you look at this car, this car is global in every sense. For example, this car is the first car we use the Land Rover architecture. The same architecture they use for the Discovery Sport. We used as a platform for this car. So it's global in every sense. But then, of course, you look at the backdrop of that beautiful palace in Rajasthan, and this in one sort of picture is India, is Tata Motors, is everything we are about. You have a strong tradition as a country and as a company, but the car or the products we make are shooting towards the future, so this is a great picture, and I love this picture.
And on the grill, you can find those architectural elements we were talking about.
Yes,
beautiful,
exactly.
Absolutely beautiful. So I wanted to end with that amazing picture and that amazing car as well. Thank you so much, Pratap, for your enthusiasm, for your passion, and for your time as well. And congratulations on your job at Tata Motors. And it's just so inspirational.
Thank you very, very much, Stephanie. I know, we last time we met was physically in Geneva, of course. This time we didn't get the chance, but thank you very much for having me. I was really looking forward to this show, because you're not, one of those typical automotive journalists. You talk about so many other things and you notice so many other things, and I'm really glad you do. So thank you for having me, and thank you for everyone who joined.
Thank you for accepting, and thank you everyone for watching the show, and thank you for your questions. Merci, Protégé says merci to you as well. So merci from France. And thank you everyone for watching and taking the time to watch the replay. Thank you, Pratap.
Thank you. Merci. Stay safe. Thank you.
Stay safe as well.